Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopi Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gorangi Radhe Vrindaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Radhe Govind Bhagwan ki jai.
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 Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna Ravi. All right. So कल हम लोग श्लोक 32 तक पढ़े थे एंड यू नो एज वी नो कपिल मुनि देवहूति को ट्रांसेंडेंटल नॉलेज स्पिरिचुअल साइंस बता रहे हैं, ऑल्सो कॉल्ड सांख्य विज्ञान, या सांख्य ज्ञान. And so far we saw 24 elements, right? If you remember, we have 24. So this is fundamentals of the material nature is what we are reading, is what Kapil Muni is explaining. So we have 24 elements, out of which 5 sthul elements, 5 suksham elements, 5 gyanendriya, 5 karmendriya, and then 4 internal senses, yeah, man, buddhi, ahankar, and consciousness, right? So 4 internal senses. So like this we have 24 elements, and then Lord Shri Krishna manifests as Kal, the time. Time is the external energy. External energy of the Lord is time, right? That's external potency. And of course, there is a spiritual potency which remains as is. And when the Kal mixes with this, we go to the material nature. And then what happens is there is a Mahat Tattva where all the living entities are residing. And at the time of creation, the Lord Shri Krishna, yeah, he impregnates the 24 elements with Kal, and that is known as Pradhan before that, and then it becomes Prakriti. Yeah, so we get the Prakriti, and then from Mahat Tattva, Lord Shri Krishna expands as 4 manifestations. And do you know the 4 names? Like, what are the expansion of Supreme Lord Krishna? Right? Remember, we've been talking about Sankarshan, yeah, Lord Sankarshan, Lord Aniruddha, and Lord Pradyuman. Yeah. So 4 lords. Krishna. So, and then we remember Vasudev is the Swami of the Super Soul. Yeah. There are 4 internal senses. Super Soul Swami is Lord Vasudev. And then we have one from the Satogun of Ahankar. Then we have Ahankar, right? Self-ego. And the Swami of self-ego is Sankarshan, Lord Sankarshan. Yeah. And then from self-ego, Ahankar, Satogun of Ahankar, Man is generated. Yeah. Man, mind. And then the Swami of Man is Lord Aniruddha. Yeah. And then from the Ahankar of Rajogun, and then in the Rajogun mode of Ahankar, the Buddhi is generated. and the lord of the buddhi is Pradyumna. Yeah. So I hope just summarizing that, and that is how the material nature is created. So, and we are reading Shlok 33 now. Anilji. Anilji. Anilji, can you hear?
जी हाँ
करेंगे?
अर्थाश्रयत्वं शब्दस्य द्रष्टुलिङ्गत्वमेव च तन्मात्रत्वं न च नभसो लक्षणं कवयो विदुः. Persons who are learned and who have the true knowledge define sound as that which conveys the idea of an object, indicates the presence of a speaker, screened from our view, and constitutes the subtle form of ether. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So yesterday we started reading about. So you got those 5 elements. Yeah. Akash, Prithvi, Agni, Vayu, and Jal. Yeah. So we have those 5 elements. Now what happens? The first sound is generated, and the shuttle elements, and sound is generated from ether, Akash. That is what Kapil Muni is explaining right now. It says here, Tanmatritvam cha nabsho. Yeah, nab is the Akash. And so that's the sound. And what Kapil Muni is saying is how the sound is defined as something which conveys the idea of an object. It indicates the presence of a speaker screen from our view and constitutes the shuttle form of ether. Yeah. So we'll read the next slok. Harina ji.
Yes, Vya. Bhutanam Chidratritvam Bahirantare Rameva Cha Pranendriyatma Dishnayatvam Navaso Vritti Lakshanam. The activities and characteristics of the ethereal elements can be observed as the accommodation of room for the external and internal existences of all living entities, namely the field of activities of the vital air, the senses, and the mind. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So the characteristics of the eternal element can be observed as like air and the senses and the mind. It says here pranendriya adhisanyatvam. Yeah. And those are the nab. Nab is the akash, priti, lakshanam. Those are the lakshanam characteristics of sound and ether. Okay. Like to read this, Tarun.
The statement in Bhagavad Gita that the mental situation at the time of death is the basis of the next birth is also corroborated in this verse. Mental existence transforms into tangible form as soon as there is an opportunity due to contamination or development of the gross elements from subtle form. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare.
नभसः शब्द तन्मात्रात् कालगत्या विकुर्वतः स्पर्शो भवततो वायुस्पर्शस्य च संग्रहः. Translation: From ethereal existence, which evolves from sound, the next transformation takes place under the impulse of time, and thus the subtle element touch and thence the air and the sense of touch becomes prominent. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. ऐसे अपने को याद भी होगा, हमने पहले भी पढ़ा था. From the sound, first the sound comes, Akash, right? And then from the sound, the next transformation takes place. with the impulse of time. And that next transformation is in the air, right? The Vayu element, which is the sparsh, touch. Yeah. So first we got Akash related to sound. And then the next transformation is air, Hava, Vayu, which is related to the touch, sparsh. Yeah. So that's what happens next. And let's just read this. Sachin.
In the course of time, when the subtle forms are transformed into gross forms, they become objects of touch. The objects of touch and the tactile sense also developed after this evolution in time. Sound is the first sense object to exhibit material existence, and from the perception of sound, touch perception evolves, and from touch perception, the perception of sight. That is a way of the gradual evolution of our perceptive objects. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So from touch, the next will be the form. Ravi?
Nirbuddhatvam, Kathinnatvam, Cha, Shaityam, Mushnatvamev cha, Etat Sparshasya, Sparshyatvam, Tanmatratvam, Nabhastvaha. Softness and hardness, and cold and heat are the distinguished attributes of touch, which is characterized as the subtle form of air. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, the Suksham form of Hava, Vayu is the touch and is describing the attributes of touch. Softness, Mridatvam, Kathinatvam, yeah, hardness, and then cold and heat. Yeah. And it says here, tangibility is the proof of form. In actuality, objects are perceived in two different ways. They are either soft or hard, cold or hot, etc. This tangible action of the tactile sense is the result of the evolution of air, which is produced from the sky. Yeah, so that's clear. Yeah, so from the sky, you get the air, sound, and the touch. Yeah. Pravinji? You have to unmute. Praveen.
चालनं व्यूहनं प्राप्तिर्नेतृत्वं द्रव्यशब्दयोः सर्वेन्द्रियाणाम् आमत्वं वायो कर्माभिलक्षणम्. The action of the air is exhibited in movements, mixing, allowing approach to the objects of sound and other sense perceptions, and providing for the proper functioning of all other senses. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yeah, so it talks about the action of air. Yeah. What does it do? It allows approach to the objects of sound, right? Like you say, how sound travels, right? Travels through the air. So it's just allowing approach to the objects of sound and other sense perceptions. Yeah. And again, those purports explain in more detail how every element works. Yeah. And it says, it is clearly said in this verse that these are all movements of the air. The ability to detect orders is also due to the action of the air, which we know, right? So we all know the attributes of air. Tarun?
Vayoscha sparsha tan madrata rupam deveritad abhut samuthitam tatastejas chakshu rupo palambhanam. By interactions of the air and the sensations of touch, one receives different forms according to destiny. By evolution of such forms, there is fire, and the eye sees different forms in color. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah. So then from the interactions of the air and the sensation of touch. The next thing is the form. Yeah. One receives different forms according to destiny. And by evolution of such forms, there is fire. Yeah. So that's Agni. So we talked about Akash. Then we talked about Vayu. And now we are talking about Agni. Yeah. So Agni is the subtle form of Agni is the form or the color. Yeah. It says the eye sees different forms in color because of that. Yeah. It says Rupo Palabhanam. And from here, like Vayoksha and Sparsh together, yeah, Tanmatra Dupam Deveritat Adbhut. So let's read this purport actually. Anilji.
Because of destiny, the touch sensation, the interactions of air, and the situation of the mind, which is produced of the ethereal element, one receives the body according to his previous activities. Needless to say, a living entity transmigrates from one form to another. His form changes according to a destiny and by the arrangement of a superior authority which controls the interaction of air and the mental situation. Form is the combination of different types of sense perception. Predestined activities are the plans of the mental situation and the interaction of air. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So I mean, like of course we all know that, you know, we talk about 84 million births and all that. And all of us living entities, you know, we don't remember any history, neither we know the future, but the fact is we have been through all these different forms of Istul Sharir. And now we have a human form. And that is why they say, you know, human form is the precious time, is the precious time. We should not, you know, we should definitely move towards Krishna consciousness in the human life. Jyoti? Jyoti, you're there? Okay,
Oh,
Ravi?
1 minute, Gajen, 1 minute, please. Ask the next person, please. I'll be back.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Thank
Ravi?
you.
Hi, Ravi.
द्रव्याकृतित्वं गुणता व्यक्ति संस्थानत्वमेव च तेजस्त्वं तेजससाध्वी रूपमात्रस्य वृत्तेय. My mother dear, the characteristics of the form are understood by the dimension, quality, and individuality. The form of fire is appreciated by its affluence. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So, my dear mother, who is saying this? Who is speaking?
Kapil.
Kapil. Yeah. And what's the mother's name?
Devuti.
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 Yeah? Right. So, Kapil Muni is,
Devuti.
yeah, is speaking to Mother Devuti and continuously describing. And now what is being described is the gunata of characteristics of the form is understood by the dimension, quality, and individuality is what is being mentioned here. Yeah. And I think we understand those forms and all that, right? Of course, we see those all the time. See the next one, Sachin.
Dhyotanam Pachanam Panamadanam Himamardhanam Tejasu Vrittayas Stvetaha Soshanam Kshutru Teva Cha. Fire is appreciated by its light and by its ability to cook, to digest, to destroy food, to evaporate, and to give rise to hunger, thirst, eating, and drinking. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so we already know the characteristics of fire, right? I mean, science has given us quite a bit of knowledge how the digestion happens and everything is through the fire. Let's just read this. Okay. Ajay?
The first symptom of fire are distribution of light and heat, and the existence of fire is also perceived in the stomach. Without fire, we cannot digest what we eat. Without digestion, there is no hunger and thirst or power to eat and drink. When there is an insufficient hunger and thirst, it is understood that there is a shortage of fire within the stomach, and the Ayurvedic treatment is performed in connection with the fire element. Agni Mandayam. Since fire is increased by the secretion of bile, the treatment is to increase bile secretion. The Ayurvedic treatment thus corroborate the statements in Srimad Bhagavatam. The characteristic of fire in subduing the influence of cold is known to everyone. Severe cold can always be countered by fire. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It is describing the characteristics of Agni. Jyoti, you are back?
Yes, I am. Rupa matra vikurvana tejaso daiva chodithat rasa matra mabutta smabhav jina rasa graha. Okay. By the interaction of fire and the visual sensation, the subtle element taste evolves under a superior arrangement. From taste, water is produced, and the tongue, which perceives taste, is also manifested.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Yeah. So we saw Akash, we saw Vayu, and then we saw fire, Agni. And then from the Agni and the visual sensation, the taste evolves. Yeah. And that comes from water. Yeah. From taste, water is produced, right? Taste is the shuttle element of water. Yeah. Jal. And then the tongue, which perceives taste, which is one of the Gyanendriya, is also manifested. Yeah. So see how in the how one after another different elements are being evolved. So now this is talking about Jal. Yeah. Says the tongue is described here as the instrument for acquiring knowledge of taste. Yeah. That's one of the Gyanendriyas. Because taste is a product of water, there is always saliva on the tongue. Ravi?
Prashayo madhuristakatvallam iti naikadha bhautikānām vikārena rasa eko vibhidyate. Although originally one taste become manifold as astringent, sweet, bitter, pungent, sour, salty, and salty due to the contact with the other substances. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And we know the taste, right? You have sweet, bitter, sour, salty, all that. Rinaji?
Yes, Via. Kledanam pindanam tripte prananapya yanundanam tapapana nodo bhuyastvamam vaso vrityastvima. The characteristics of water are exhibited by its moistening other substances, coagulating various mixtures, causing satisfaction, maintaining life, softening things, driving away heat, incessantly supplying itself to reservoirs of water and refreshing by slaking thirst. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So it's basically describing the characteristics of water. Yeah. Let's just read this, Jyoti.
Starvation can be mitigated by drinking water. It is sometimes found that if a person who has taken a vow to fast takes a little water at intervals, the exhaustion of fasting is at once mitigated. In the Vedas, it is also stated, Apomaya Prana, life depends on water. With water, anything can be moistened or dampened. Flour dough can be prepared with a mixture of water. Mud is made by mixing earth with water. Hare Krishna.
Praveen ji? Praveen ji?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. As stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, water is the cementing ingredient, different material elements. If we build a house, water is actually the consistent in making the bricks. Fire, water, and air are the exchanging elements for the entire material manifestation. But water is most prominent. Also, excessive heat can be reduced simply by pouring water on the heated field. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So, right, so far, we have seen Akash, we have seen then Vayu, then we saw the Agni, and then we saw Jal. Right? I think we are going to pause here, and we'll then, of course, read about Prithvi next, and then, like that, we'll keep reading about the fundamentals of material nature. And today is Thursday, so we'll have a long weekend, yeah. And then we'll see you back on Monday night, 9:20 Eastern time, US time, and India will be Tuesday morning, 7:50. Okay. So I think we'll continue to see the Nityananda Jayanti in ISKCON temple, Mayapur. Yeah. And then have a nice weekend. See you on Monday. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.